Okay, this is the Amazon Finance Processor tool. This video is here to serve as both a demo of what the tool can do, and then also to serve as some instructions on how to use the tool if you are to get the tool. Overall purpose of the tool is a couple things. First, it's to help save you time with your Amazon finances and profit calculations, and to give you better insight into how your business is really doing. Something that is not good for your business is to not really understand what your actual profits are. That can usually lead to some pretty bad decisions in terms of your spending, so it's pretty critical to take this seriously. The first part of the tool will help keep track and organize certain monthly expenses for each month and throughout the year, as well as what you're paying for each of your products. Then a script will import all of the Amazon-specific expenses and revenue, and then crunch all the numbers for you to determine your actual profits. You'll be able to see your profit margins and ROIs as well. There's a lot of web-based tools, of course, that can do this for you, and they're pretty good, but those do usually cost a monthly fee. This is a one-time fee, so if you actually, were to use this tool, it could also save you money, which is also helpful. That being said, we'll walk through each of the tabs, and I'll kind of do a demo of how this whole thing works. The first tab is the instructions tab. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. Just know if you do get this tool, there are instructions in the beginning that kind of walk through how to use it, as well as just some things to be aware of. The one maybe thing to note now is that this tool does run off of Excel FBA macros, so you do have to enable the content. It's this little yellow thing that pops up. You do have to enable the content to use these scripts in this tool. Next tab we'll show is the totals tab. As the name suggests, it is the totals for the year. So you can see just the actual number breakdown of various expenses and profits and other items in here. That's just basically the sum total of all the months at that point that have data in them. It looks like a lot, but note in the instructions tab at the bottom, there is a breakdown of what those items are. There's comments here, so if you mouse over each of the fields, you can see what those individual items are to help explain what all this is. You also have plots in this tab that automatically populate as the months complete, that show various metrics such as your gross revenue, how many things you sold, your Amazon paychecks that Amazon's actually paying you. You can see your totals for your different profit numbers, gross, operating, and net, and your revenue. You can see each month what your different profits are, as well as your profit margins and ROIs for gross, operating, and net for each month throughout the year. And then over here you can see averages for your ROIs and your profit margins. And then some numbers here on your sales and refunds and how much of your items are being refunded in a percentage. So this can be helpful. The next thing to highlight real quick is the Cogs tab. Cogs stands for cost of goods sold. Right now it's empty for this demo, which will populate later, but this essentially serves as the database of how much you're paying for each of your items. This is critical in terms of understanding your profits. Without this, you really won't know your profits. So this works by inputting what your Amazon SKU is, so what the SKU is in your Amazon Seller Central account for that particular item. The title is also here for reference. It's not used in the calculations, but it's there for your reference. And of course, the purchase price, what did you actually spend on that item? In this database gets used by the script in terms of determining your profits. Then you have a tab for each month. Each tab comes with step-by-step instructions of how to fill out the tab and run the tool. I've already input some data based on some old numbers I had lying around, and some of it this is just made up just to show something here for the demo. But for the demo here, we'll actually do December, the assumption is we've done January through November, but we have to do December. So we'll kind of walk through how to do that and what that looks like. So first at the top, you'll see, notice there are different cell colors in this tool. There is a little guide here that tells you what the cell colors are. But basically, if it's yellow, you should put something there. If it's not yellow, don't type stuff into that cell. Step one here is pretty straightforward. You have to input all of your non-Amazon expenses. So things like Amazon referral fees or Amazon storage fees, those will be captured by the tool when you import the Amazon expense report. But anything else, such as what you're paying for your, any third-party prepper fees, or paying wages to your employees, or rent, utilities, or software, that won't be known until you type it in. So basically, if you have any fees here, you just type them in. So for example, let's say you have a third-party prepper, they're prepping your items for you, and here you would just type in whatever you want here to organize. You can call it whatever you want, and then you just type in the number. Let's say it's $50. What happens is by typing them in, you then will get the total up here, and this total is what's going to get used in your profit calculations. So basically go left to right, fill these things in as you have them. There are also sections for other COGS and other operating costs. These are meant to serve as kind of the other fees that I didn't specifically account for. So if you have something else you want to account for, you can just type in whatever you want. You can type in whatever you need to, and it'll be input into your profit calculations. Only difference in other COGS versus other operating costs is that the other COGS would be input into your gross profit, whereas the operating costs or other operating costs would be part of your operating profit calculations. But they're both part of your bottom line at the end of the day. So fill these in. The only exception is you don't have to touch the income tax just yet. We'll get to that at the end. Step two is the setting, and it probably won't apply to most people, but it's a toggle setting for if you're using Amazon MCF, which is multi-channel fulfillment. If you don't know, you can have Amazon ship items to non-Amazon customers. So for example, if you're selling an item on eBay, but it's being shipped from an Amazon warehouse, you get charged an Amazon fee. So you may or may not want to include those fees in your Amazon profit calculations. If you want to have those MCF shipping fees be part of your actual Amazon expenses and profit calculations, you would have this setting be a 1 right here. But if you want to maybe expense those fees on it in a different place for that other business, for eBay for example, you would put a 0 here, and in that case the numbers will just be printed but not included as part of your Amazon profit calculations. If you don't use this, then it doesn't matter what you put here, so you can just basically move on in that case. The next step is you have to download your Amazon monthly transaction report. It's a big CSV or Excel file. This will contain all of your Amazon expenses and revenue. So in here there is an explanation of how to get to that report, and here's a picture of what it looks like, but here's a quick demo. So you have to go to Seller Central. Under Reports, you go to Payments, and then you go to Date Range Reports, and then you get this page. It's pretty straightforward. You click Generate Report. You would then click Transaction, keep it default to all, and then pick the month you want to do this for. You have to wait till the month is over to do this, but you pick the month, and then click Generate, and then it would populate here, and then you can download it. Also recommend downloading your summary report. That'll be helpful later, but we'll get to that. So once you download this report, you have to save it somewhere that you remember so you can access this file later. Okay, so once you've downloaded that, you've completed step 3. Step 4 is to actually input your COGS, your cost of goods sold, to fill in how much you have been spending on each of your items. Because again, that's critical, or actually required, to knowing your real profits. Like I said before, the Cogs tab is what is used to keep track of this. But I do have a tool to help you populate this, because you could just manually type in these things, which would take a while. But I created this little button here, this import cogs template, that the way it works is basically whenever you click it, you get a prompt telling you to go ahead and click the Excel sheet that you just downloaded, aka your the Amazon transaction report. So what happens is we have already made one, so I've got a demo one here ready to go. From some stuff from several years ago, some old products that I used to sell. So all you have to do is you have to just select that transaction report. You click open. You'll get a little import bar to show you how long until it's done, but it's usually pretty quick. But once it's done, it then takes you to your Cogs tab, and then you can see all of the Amazon SKUs, as well as the titles for those items, that the things that were sold that particular month. The purchase price will default to 0, so you have to go through and basically fill in now what those purchase prices were. Like I said, this is old data, so I don't really know, so I'm just going to put 1 for all these, but you would fill in what you actually spend on getting these items, and then that would basically complete step 4. The other way to do this is to let the program ask you. The way the program is going to work is it's going to basically go line by line at each of your transactions, and then it will look up that particular COGS expense in this tab in terms of knowing how much to expense for that particular item sale, for the cost of the item. If it does not see an item, it will then ask you what the purchase price was. And you can basically just do that. So if you skip the import template, it's just going to ask you anyway when you run the code. So I'll kind of show that. I just deleted 2 entries just so we can see it actually ask us what those items are. With that in mind, we can now run the code. Instructions here, but basically to actually run the calculations, you have to click this button. You get a similar prompt telling you to open the transaction report you just downloaded in step 3. You click OK, and then you click that same file you downloaded in step 3. What's going to happen is it's going to tell you how long it has left, but it is now paused because it's waiting for you to tell it how much you spent on this item. In this case, it found a refund for this item. It tells you the item name, the SKU for the item, and it asks you to input what that item cost was. So we'll just say it was $2. I don't really know. Enter 2, and then you press enter or OK, and then it will then at that point enter that item into the database, as well as use it in the calculations for this month as well. Here's another one. Again, I have no idea, but we'll just say it's 1. And then once it's done, you now have data populated. But we'll get to that here in a moment. The 6th step, which is an optional but recommended step, is to basically double check that the numbers make sense. And you can do this by comparing the tool output over here to the PDF monthly summary report that I had you download in step 3. To basically double check that everything seems to be accounted for. That's relevant because this tool works by looking for specific entries in text in the large CSV file you get from Amazon. But if Amazon changes how those are printed, or if they add new expenses or things that I haven't seen before, then they will not be accounted for. So it's good to kind of make sure that nothing was missed, because Amazon does have a pretty complicated system in how they do expenses. If you do find things that are not accounted for, it's pretty easy. All you would do is you could basically input that expense into either other operating costs or into other cogs, and then all you would do is you would just type other OPEX cost. Let's say it was $10 for whatever this fee was, and then once that's input, you just have to rerun the code. So you rerun the code, you click the exact same report, it's going to sift through it, and it's going to now include that number in the profit calculations. The long-term fix is you can email me. I've got my contact info here to let me know it's not capturing certain expenses, then I can look into it. Then maybe try and get that as part of the code for later, for you or for others that get this tool. So that's step 6. The final step, step 7, is to input your income tax. So of course, Uncle Sam at the IRS wants to get their cut, obviously. So at some point you'll have to be paying taxes, and that you could basically put right here. So if you're going to pay $100 in income tax on this month, maybe part of your estimated tax payments, and you can put that here. That's relevant because that does impact your bottom line. The only thing this is going to impact is going to be your final net profit. So as you can see, if I don't pay taxes, my operating and net profit are the same, but by paying taxes, you're going to see your net profit is going to go down, since you do have to pay taxes at some point. So you can fill this in really at any time and not have to rerun the code. It'll just impact your bottom line, your net profit, as well as your net margin, as well as your net ROI. Okay. Then here you can see the actual numbers. So these numbers here are the same numbers we saw in the totals tab. It's the same thing. But this is just for that one month as opposed to all of the months combined. I won't go through every detail of what each thing is, but I'll kind of do a high-level breakdown. So it starts by, you can see what your revenue is at the top, like how much your product sales were and how many things you sold. With Amazon, you do have kind of other extra pseudo income that isn't really income, that usually gets expensed out later with FBA fees, but things like shipping credits, gift wrap credits, those are included here, as well as how much tax was collected, which would include any tax that Amazon collected as part of the MFT program, which is the Marketplace Facilitator Tax. You can see a breakdown of your cost of goods sold. So whenever you sell an item, you're going to be incurring a cost of goods expense that is equal to the purchase price of that item. So you can see the total of that right here, just how much you can expense in terms of what you sold. You can see other things that are classified as cost of goods sold, such as Amazon storage fees, and things like that. Any prep fees. The blue cells are going to be things that were these blue cells. So these blue cells are going to line up with these blue cells that you see here, and also here. And you can see your total COGS expenses for this month. And then the next section is, you can see all the adjustments made for refunds. So if you get refunds, that'll be accounted for here. And then you can see any inventory credits or inventory adjustments that occur between you and Amazon. So if they damage your item, lose your item, things like that, that'll be seen here in this section. And then you can see cost of sales summary, which is basically all of the fees paid per transaction. Things like referral fees, fulfillment fees, that's all going to be broken down here. And then you can see your first a crack at your profits, or your gross profit, which is basically going to be how the core of your business is really doing, which is selling stuff. So you can see your gross profit, as well as your gross profit margin and your gross ROI. So that's good to know, but that's not the bottom line. There's still more to include as part of your profits. The next one, of course, being your overhead. So what's it cost to really run this business that you're doing? So you can see all of these blue operating expenses such as employee wages, rent, utilities, insurance, etc. that you had input over here on the left. You can see those all totaled here if you input them. And then from the Amazon expenses, the green columns here, you can see your pro seller fee, if you paid any advertising costs, and then just what the sum is of all these cells, your total operating costs. And then you can get your operating profit right here, which is going to be your gross profit minus your operating expenses. And then, of course, your operating margin and operating ROI. You can then see a tax breakdown of how much you input here. You're going to pay in income taxes, as well as any tax that you collected that's not part of the Amazon MFT program where Amazon is collecting and remitting those state sales tax. And then the final bottom line here is your net profit, which is going to be your operating profit, and then subtracting out whatever you paid in taxes, since that's going to be really your bottom line. And last, you can see how much Amazon actually paid to you in cash. It's a lot, but again, reminder, all this data and what these things mean is in the instructions tab right here. You mouse over, you can see all these explanations. Last thing to cover here is going to be all the plots that automatically populate for each month. So we've already kind of shown these, but you can see breakdowns of what your gross revenue, gross profit, operating profit, and net profit are for this month. You can see your sales and return numbers. Then you can see breakdowns of your profit margins and ROIs for this particular month. The tool, as it runs, also tracks per day what your revenue, profits, and refunds are for that particular day, and then also plot those so you can see each day of the month right here and what the item sales and profits were in revenue for that particular day, and same thing for refunds. And then over here is just a table format of what is in these two charts if you want to see it in that format as well. Last thing here to show is just going to be to go back to the totals tab. Now that we've finished December, you can see we've now got this number here populating for December. Before it was blank, but now we've input December, so there's now data there to see. And at this point, you have all your months here, and then you can see trending throughout the entire year in terms of how your business is doing. And that's pretty much it. This product may be able to help your business, so consider giving it a try. I've been making and using this tool for my own business for a couple years now. I've been kind of refining it as I go, making it as good as I can make it. So hopefully you can also make use of it and enjoy it. And if you have any questions, I've got my email below in the contact details, and otherwise, have a great day.